Okay, Mr. Chairman, you're free to start the meeting whenever you'd like.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Leak, and I'm the chair of the City County Planning Board. I now call to order the May 13th, 2021 meeting, which will be conducted remotely. Due to the state of emergency, all planning board members are participating remotely. I will now ask our planning director, Aaron King, to call the roll.
All right, George Bryan,
Present.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Here.
Jason Grubbs. I can't hear you, Jason, but I see you, so I'm gonna mark you as present. Clarence Lamb.
Here.
Chris Leak,
Here.
Mo McCray,
Here.
Brenda Smith,
Here.
Jack Steelman.
Here.
All right.
Thank you. I'm also going to acknowledge Council Member Scipio on the call again today. Thank you for coming. Is there any other council member that I cannot see, Mr. King?
I don't see any doing a quick scan there. I think Councilmember Scipio is our only one today.
Thank you again for joining. When there is a vote, a roll call vote will be conducted. Each board member will be recognized and asked to clearly state their vote for the record. All guests participating in this remote meeting, either through Zoom or by phone, will remain muted until recognized by the board for comment. Today's meeting is being broadcast live on TV 13 and is also being live streamed on the city's website. The meeting will also be replayed on TV 13 tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and Sunday at 4 p.m. Our first order of business today will be the consent agenda. These are items for which the petitioner is requesting withdrawal or continuance, or items for which staff has recommended approval and no one has signed up to speak in opposition. For our public hearings today, each side will have a total of 12 minutes. There is no rebuttal period. Once you have been recognized by the board, staff will unmute your microphone so that you can provide your comments. After the public hearing is closed and the board goes into work session, no one is permitted to speak unless the planning board asks them a question. The item under section B of our agenda will require final action by the elected body, either the city council or county commissioners. As such, votes taken today are recommendations which are considered by the city council or board of commissioners during this review of the process. For special use district zoning requests, the petitioner must identify the intended use or uses of the site and give specific details on how the site will be developed. If you are addressing the board today, we would ask that before you begin your comments, please give us your name, address, and zip code for the record. Our first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the April 8th and 22nd meetings. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, is there a motion?
Move approval. Clarence, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, is there a second?
Jack Steelman, second.
Second by Mr. Stillman. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs. Give us a thumbs up for a yes, Jason. There we go. So that's a yes for Jason. Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, it's 8-0.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Now I'm going to recognize Mr. Desmond Corley to go over the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to share my screen and attempt to begin the consent agenda presentation. You all just let me know what you're seeing.
You're seeing your screen,
Are you seeing the presentation view or the actual slide?
the actual slide.
Fantastic. That's what I like to hear. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The first item on the consent agenda this evening is B1, which is case W 3466. That is a petition by the city to change the zoning jurisdiction from Forsyth County to Winston-Salem. This is almost 12.5 acres on the west side of Walbert Road, south of Business Park Drive. This is just a formality. I think you all are familiar at this point. This property was recently annexed into the city, and so we need to change the zoning jurisdiction to Winston-Salem. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And the recommendation is for approval.
Yes, I'm sorry. We recommend approval of the zoning jurisdiction change. And I'll remind the board, throughout the consent agenda, you'll be making one motion for consistency with the comprehensive plan and another motion to recommend approval or denial.
Mr. King, is there anyone here to speak on this matter?
There is not.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
It's a motion by Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
I'll second Belinda Dunnigan.
Second by Ms. Dunnigan. Any further discussion? Mr. King?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to disclose whether it is or is not required that a couple of years ago, I had a direct commercial real estate brokerage relationship to sell one of the parcels as this tract was being assembled. That relationship has come and gone. I have absolutely no interest or any opportunity to earn money as a result of tonight's decision.
Thank you for that disclosure. Mr. King, is there anything that needs to be done, or are we free to move forward?
You're free to move forward.
All right, then if you could please call the roll.
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs. No, okay, there's a thumbs up. Jason, you might need to call in if you can't get any luck there, but we'll mark you as a yes for this one. Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
All right.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board recommend approval of W 3466.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No, there's a motion. I'm sorry. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs. Don't see Jason in the list.
I believe he dropped Aaron.
Okay. Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous.
All right, Mr. Chair, the next item on the consent agenda is W 3467. This is another annexation conversion. The petitioner is the city of Winston-Salem to change the zoning jurisdiction from Forsyth County to Winston-Salem. This is over 92 acres on the east side of Wahlberg Road, just across the street from where we just were. This property was also recently annexed into the city's corporate limits. And a vote here tonight would recommend to the city council to adopt a zoning jurisdiction change. Staff recommends approval, and we will need two motions.
All right. Is there anyone here to speak on this matter?
No.
All right. Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
That's a motion by Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
I'll second
Yes,
Belinda
second, Jack
Dunnigan.
Steelman.
Second by Ms. Dunnigan. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs.
Yes.
There we go. Good to see you, Jason.
My power of second was taken away there for a moment.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Lee,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board recommend approval of W 3467.
It's a motion by Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
Second, Jason Grubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Grubbs. Second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Lee,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, next item on the consent agenda is B3, which is case W 3469, a development by the name of 450 Polo Road. It is on the south side of Polo Road between North Cherry Street and Dawson Street. It's almost 4 acres, proposing to rezone from HBS, which is a commercial zoning district, to RM12S, which is residential multifamily. The request would add 43 townhomes. They have the 3-story townhome buildings along Polo Road, and then 2-story townhome buildings closer to the existing neighborhood off of McCandless Street. The Polo Road units would be oriented toward the street. So on the right side of this slide, the proposed elevations that they have submitted, and the one at the top, in the top right, is what will be facing Polo Road. Those are the front elevations. All of those units along Polo Road will be oriented to that street. The parking is internally oriented. There is a condition, and I will get to that in the next slide, that the petitioner or the development will treat stormwater above and beyond what's required in the UDO today. They will also treat the 50-year storm event. But the condition that's in your book is worded wrong. So this next slide just shows the revised language of the condition. It's a lot. I'm not going to read through everything, but essentially it's the pretty standard condition that they will submit a stormwater management study. We've added the language that they also have to control for the 50-year storm event. There was some language in there that got very specific about how those measures had to be designed, and that's not something that we typically do. That's handled during the permitting stage. And so that language in yellow is just our standard language for stormwater management. It basically says if they want to change anything about the stormwater control measure that they show on this plan right now, it'll at least be a staff change and could wind up being a site plan amendment. With that change, staff recommends approval of this request. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I will just note that when we make the motion, if you're going to make a motion to approve or to recommend approval of this rezoning, with your second motion, you would need to recommend approval with the amended condition.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Corley?
Yes, Mr. Corley, we've got institutional one side, commercial on the other. Is this even though it isn't explicitly like this is like a mixed use in a sense, putting these two things side by side, right?
Taken as a whole, considered with other development around it, yes, it would be a mixed use.
So that would be sort of in line with where we've been going with these recent changes.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just add real quickly to that, because I think it's a good observation. I will predict that we'll see more rezonings of this nature where commercial zonings are coming in to convert to residential zoning as we really deal with this housing crunch that's out there. This probably will not be the last one of these that we see. So I think you'll see more rezonings of this nature coming through.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Corley? All right, is there anyone here to speak on this matter, Mr. King?
We have got the applicants. I think there's 4 folks from the development team. No one is here in opposition.
All right, well, thank you all for coming. Seeing no opposition, I'm going to close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Motion by Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
Second, Jason Grubbs.
Second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate the design of this particular proposal, and especially how sensitive they are to the properties along McCandless Street by putting the, less intrusive development there on that side. So I just think it's a good design.
Okay. Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman. Jack, you may be on mute. I didn't hear anything. You are on mute.
I'm sorry, yes, is the vote. Thank you.
That's 8-0.
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. With the amended condition, I move that the planning board recommend approval of W 3469.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
Second, Jason Grubbs.
Second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
It's 8-0.
All right, the next item on the consent agenda is B4, which is case W 3470. This is a development by the name of LA Reynolds, because that's what used to be on this site. You may remember that recently development was approved through special use rezoning on the site in the general business district. It's about 47 acres on the east side of Stires Ferry Road, south of Laura Road. The current proposal is for a planned residential development. It would drastically reduce the intensity of the approved development. Again, the approved development is GBS, and it was a mixed-use development that included a lot of commercial buildings in addition to multifamily residential. Much of the eastern portion of the site is proposed to be undisturbed or to remain undisturbed. It also shows 2 future connections to greenways that will be along the 2 creeks that traverse this site. And it also has the active open space that meets the revised standards for active open space in PRDs. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Corley? Mr. King, is there anyone here to speak on this case?
There is not.
All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
We have a motion by Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
Second, Jason Grubbs.
Second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion?
Sorry, may I ask a question, Mr. Corley?
Yeah.
I think initially we had talked when this land was rezoned about how the traffic was going to get out there. Is that the same as when we had it more intensive?
What do you mean? I wasn't a part of the discussion back in, I think it was 2018 when this property was originally zoned. But the plan here is for the traffic to utilize the main entrance on Stires Ferry Road. That's going to be the primary access point. There's an emergency access point to Fath Road to the north where the site, Fath Road stubs into the site from the north. That's proposed for emergency access. The conditions of Fath Road, the fact that it is not currently maintained by the city and that the city is not likely to undertake maintenance of that road, kind of all led to the determination that city staff as a whole was fine with that being provided as an emergency only access.
And so you feel good about the amount of traffic on that curve coming into Stires Ferry?
Yes, especially considering that the existing or the traffic impact analysis that was done took into account a much more intense development with a much larger traffic count. This one is considered to be kind of safe with the improvements that are proposed.
Yeah, we were anticipating, I think the TIA was 5,500 trips a day under what the existing zoning is. What's before you today is around 967. So a significant decrease in the amount of trips generated from this request.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Thank you. There's a previous motion and second on the floor. Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
That's 8-0.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board recommend approval of W 3470.
We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Struggling with touchpad today. Yes.
okay. Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
8-0.
Thank you. The next item on the consent agenda is B5, which is case W 3473. That is West Lawn School. This is a proposal to rezone 1.5 acres from LOS to IPS on the northwest side of Country Club Road between Mozart Avenue and Sabon Avenue. Here's the proposed site plan. It's a special use request, but the petitioner is not proposing to make any changes to the site or any significant changes to the site. They will be required to install some sidewalk along Country Club Road and a connection to the building. But other than that, no changes are proposed for the site. It was once used as a dentist office. It's been vacant for a little while now. So the petitioner doesn't have any need to change the physical site itself. There is a condition, and you'll see it in your materials, to revert to LOS if the rezoning is approved. There's a condition to revert to LOS if the private school use ceases operation for longer than 1 year. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Corley? All right, is there anyone here to speak on this matter?
We have one person speaking in support, no one in opposition, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you for coming to speak in support. Seeing no opposition, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Motion by Mr. Lamb,
Second.
second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
8-0.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence again. I move that the planning board recommends approval of W 3473.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
Second, Jason Grubbs.
Second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? If not, Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
It's 8-0.
All right, the next case has opposition, so that will not be on consent. We're going to move to B7, which is case W 3475. We are back to annexation conversions here. This is a request of the city of Winston-Salem as the petitioner, requesting to change the zoning jurisdiction from Forsyth County LIL to Winston-Salem LIL, 70.5 acres on the west side of Union Cross Road between Clark Road and Axel Drive. Staff recommends approval of this request to change the zoning jurisdiction.
Any questions for Mr. Corley? Mr. King, is there anyone here to speak on this matter?
There is not.
All right, we're going to declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
There's a motion by Mr. Lamb,
Second.
second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
yes,
Brenda Smith,
yes,
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, it's 8-0.
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board recommend approval of W 3475.
There's a motion by Mr. Lamb. Is there a second?
Second, Jason
Second
Groves.
by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
yes,
Brenda Smith,
yes,
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
8-0.
All right, we're done with the public hearing items. So this next item is B1. It's a subdivision, a preliminary subdivision called The Ridge at Summit Point. It's a 13-lot, single-family residential development on 12.25 acres. What you see on the location map is the entire area for the subdivision, but all of the lots, as you'll see on the site plan, are proposed along Oak Summit Road. This proposed development is essentially going to take these 13 lots and some common open space out of a previously approved subdivision by the name of Summit Point. They are proposing shared driveways onto Oak Summit Road rather than individual driveways for each of these lots. Staff recommends approval of this request. It is compliant with UDO requirements.
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move approval.
Motion by Mr. Lamb,
Second.
second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
yes,
Brenda Smith,
yes,
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
That's approved 8-0.
Okay, the next item on the consent agenda is D1. It's a planning board review for a PRD 71 proposed lots on 70.72 acres on Meadowlark Drive. Proposed site plan shows extensive common areas throughout the site. This development proposes a private street network internal to the site. And if you can follow my cursor, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see it. Right around here is where the public streets end. So there's a public street connection to Ashbury Run Drive to the south. And then of course, there's a public street coming in off of Meadowlark Drive. And then right around here, we turn to private streets. The plan shows, again, extensive open space that exceeds the minimum requirements for passive, active, and thoroughfare open space. There are some conditions related to the timing of construction as they are related to improvements that the city is doing on Meadowlark Drive. But otherwise, this plan meets UDO requirements and staff recommends approval.
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move approval.
Motion by Mr. Lamb,
Second, Jason Groves.
second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
yes,
Brenda Smith,
yes,
Jack Steelman.
Yes, and I'd just like to thank Scott and his team for a delightfully creative site plan. I appreciate it.
Is that all the votes?
That was 8-0. It was approved. Yes.
Okay. And the last item on consent today is D2, another planning board review. This one is for improvements to an existing school for a modular learning unit. And they also have some additional improvements for parking on 7 acres. Here's the site plan. It zooms in to where the development is going to occur. So what you see shaded here is the modular building that's going to be used as an extension of the school. There are also some parking area improvements associated with that addition, as well as some parking area improvements further south along Broad Street that aren't adjacent to the modular, that are not adjacent to the modular unit. All of these proposed changes are compliant with the provisions in the UDO, and staff recommends approval.
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I recommend approval. I
Motion.
move that we recommend approval.
Motion by Mr. Lamb,
Second, Jason Grubbs.
second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Linda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Lee,
Yes.
Mo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, that was approved 8-0, and I believe that takes us to the conclusion of the consent agenda. The last remaining item we have will be the one public hearing for today, and that is zoning case W 3474. And Elizabeth Collier, I think, is with us. There's Elizabeth, and she is going to be giving the staff presentation with this. You may not know Elizabeth. She's one of our zoning plans reviewers, and she's been helping us out with a large caseload. So she is going to give you a great presentation, and I will turn it over to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Aaron. Good evening. So case W 3474, the petitioner is Living Word Fellowship, Inc. The site is approximately 16.9 acres, located on the western side of Bethabara Road, north of Bluebird Lane, and just south of Chatelain Drive. The request from the petitioner is special use rezoning from RS9 and MH to RM5S. This is the legacy map showing the rezoning location located in GMA 3 in the North Ward. So you can see the property included in the zoning request outlined in yellow. The green area shows you the neighborhood outreach mailings from the city, from the property, the subject property. GMA 3, like I said, and the proposed zoning is RM5S. The existing zoning today is RS9 and manufactured home zoning for this request. The aerial imagery shows you the existing site today, mostly wooded. I believe there are about 2 manufactured homes on the site today. And there is a proposed connection from Edgware Road on the west of the site to continue public streets into the site and continue on to Bethabara Road. And you can also note the signage locations posted by the city, directional signage on Bluebird Lane, Bethabara Road, and also on Edgware Road. This is the subject site on Bethabara Road looking south. And the site is, as you can see, wooded on Bethabara Road. And that would be the proposed entry location from Bethabara Road, right near the light post in the center of the screen. So I've noted the site looking toward Chatelain Drive on Bethabara Road. Again, a wooded site on a minor thoroughfare on Bethabara Road. This is the neighborhood street, Edgware Road, that would be continued on into the proposed development from the western side into the proposed development. And this is the site as seen on Bluebird Lane. There will be frontage on the site on Bluebird Lane proposed. Engineering deemed a connection on Bluebird Road was not, I'm sorry, Bluebird Lane is not feasible or safe. So just frontage on Bluebird Lane with a buffer yard proposed. And the area plan does show that the subject site is proposed for single family residential use. The proposed use is for twin homes or duplexes, and the proposed density is comparable to that of single family residential zoning RS9. So staff feels that this is in keeping with the area plan. This is the view of the site plan that would be adopted as part of the rezoning request. Again, you can note the connection into the neighborhood on the west from Edgware Road that is an existing public street. The Edgware Road would continue into the neighborhood. There is great connectivity within the proposed neighborhood with duplexes or twin homes. There are mostly public streets, 2 private streets on the more eastern side within the circle that is Freedom, I think it's Freedom Lane, I'm sorry. Anyway, so there would be some private streets there, but otherwise all public streets with the main access point to this neighborhood on Bethabara Road. And you can see there's existing vegetation and common area to be remaining on the site, and a buffer yard around the entire perimeter, including on Bethabara Road, which is not required by the UDO, but the petitioner is proposing this buffer yard around the entire perimeter, including the frontage on Bethabara Road. The staff summary for this development. The development is internally oriented infill development and would be permitted on a site with existing services, including sewer and water along Bethabara Road. The proposal does allow for a mixture of housing types with comparable scale and density to the surrounding neighborhoods. And the existing neighborhood connectivity would be improved by extending a public road, which is Edgware Road, into the proposed development with access onto Bethabara Road. I'll be happy to answer any questions. The zoning recommendation is approval, and the site plan does meet UDO requirements. And again, I'll be happy to answer questions from the board.
I have a question, Ms. Collier.
Yes.
Could you tell me what kind of a buffer it is on the western side of the property against the homes on Queen Anne Circle?
Thank you. That would be a type 2, 15-foot wide buffer yard.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Clarence, Ms. Collier. You said it's similar to RS9 density. What is the, I looked at it, I think, and seen the report, but what is the density? How comparable is it to RS9?
The proposed density, thank you, Clarence. The proposed density is 4.9 units per acre, which is just under what is allowed for RM5 zoning. And the density under RS9 zoning would be 4.8 units per acre.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're very welcome.
Clarence, this is Chris. I actually just did that math. Under what they have proposed is 84 units. Under existing RS9 zoning, they can have 81.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Collier, I think I'm looking at this correctly. There's a sidewalk on one side of the roads that are proposed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And there will also be sidewalks on the entire frontage of Bethabara Road.
And that works to have the sidewalk just on one side?
It does. That meets UDO requirements. And actually, if you look in interior to the site, if you look interior to the site, there's a lot of common area and proposed sidewalks inside the development, as well as proposed public sidewalks on Bethabara Road.
Now, I noticed in the outreach that Mr. Miller or the firm promised that there would be no more right-of-way taken off of Edgeware, but is there no thought from the city's perspective that a sidewalk might continue along there in the future?
That was not just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll help Elizabeth with that one. So I don't think it precludes it, but we certainly can't require this developer to extend that sidewalk back onto the Edgeware neighborhood.
So it would be more precise for him to have responded. I mean, I don't know how precise the notes were, but that from a developer standpoint, he had no intention of taking further.
And I'll let Mr. Miller, I know he's going to speak. We're going to have a public hearing, and that might be something he can address in more detail in his comments.
Okay, because I mean, we're always looking for sidewalks. We're always looking for walkability, connectivity along the way there. And I don't want to underpromise and surprise people. Okay, thank you.
All great questions. Any further questions for Ms. Collier? You did a great job. First time hearing you present.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. King, because I do think we have opposition in this case.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. So we will be holding a public hearing on this, and as we always do, we'll start with the proponents, and they will have a total of 12 minutes to provide their comments. The opponents will follow, and they will have a total of 12 minutes to share for their comments as well. So, Mr. Chairman, if you're ready to begin that, we'll start with the proponents, and we'll just go down the list. First person signed up is Nicole Neal. So, Nicole, if you're with us and you'd like to speak, please unmute, provide your name and address for the record, and begin your remarks.
Okay, if everyone can hear me, I want to defer to Paul, who is representing Living Word Fellowship. He can speak, I think, more appropriately to the questions that have been raised.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I know the remaining speakers in support are both with MLA, and it's Scott Miller and Paul Fedician. So guys, I will let you guys decide who wants to go next. Whoever that is, unmute, provide your name and address for the record, and begin your remarks.
Aaron, this is Paul Fedician. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right, excellent. Got off of mute. And I'm sure Scott will jump in as well as we get into the latter portion of this. I would like to kind of get started. And first, appreciate the planning board allowing us to come before you with this plan. Ms. Collier, it's been a pleasure working with you on this as well. And we appreciate planning staff's support and also working through the comments with you guys to try and put together the best plan that we can on this project. Now, we've been working with Nicole Neal. She's one of the representatives from Living Word Fellowship Church for quite some time now to try and take a look at this property and put together a best use of what can be done on this parcel. It is a fairly good sized parcel, just under 17 acres. And so after looking at a number of different ways to develop this, we kind of fell into a residential setting that you're seeing in front of you. Some of the main objectives, I think, to the site plan were, number one, to create a residential subdivision to kind of fit into the neighborhoods that are already out there. We didn't want to come in with multifamily apartments, multifamily homes. We wanted to create opportunities, number one, for individual home ownership out in that area, which kind of shadows what's already existing in most of the communities. In addition to creating the home ownership opportunities, wanted to try and create amenities also within the development. We have a community building that will be within there. You can see that in addition to the public sidewalks that we have throughout the development, we also have other walking trails. So trying to develop home ownership with amenities within this neighborhood. We were also trying to create a neighborhood that doesn't come in at a higher density than what's currently allowed. I'm glad you gentlemen pointed out the math on that. As you mentioned, under the existing zoning, RS9, 81 homes are allowed, and we're coming in and proposing a total of 84. Now, these would be duplexes or twin homes, so they'll be attached to each other, but they are individual single-family homes. So in addition to that, we did want to try and develop this in an environmental way. Of course, we can't save all of the trees, but we are certainly cognizant of the neighbors on all three sides of us. So where we are able to confine grading and confine disturbed area, we are going to do that in our best ability and preserve the existing trees as buffers out there. Where we can't do that, of course, we'll come in and plant required buffer yards to try and screen between the existing neighborhoods and what we're proposing. So that's kind of where we were heading with this, something that fits into the fabric that is out there. Of course, we did follow several of the planning staff's recommendations up along Pythabra. We are proposing more than the standard street yard, and that's reflected on the plan that you see in front of you. Also, we've taken staff's recommendation to make the connection to Edgeware Road. That did come through as a recommendation during the sketch plan review and then during staff plan review itself. So that's where that connection's coming from. Of course, main entrance and exit is off of Pythabra Road, and we're going to try and create a nice entrance out there. Staff did also recommend that there's a right-of-way taking on Pythabra, and so you see a road widening along there with the proposed sidewalk. There was one comment, I believe, on expanding right-of-way on Edgeware. Throughout the planning comments, there was no indication that staff was requesting additional right-of-way to be taken. And so I think that that's what we were trying to portray during our conversation with the neighborhood, that this plan does not propose any additional right-of-way taking. We're not doing a roadway widening. We're tying into the existing conditions as they are. If there's anything different than that would be required, we're not aware of that. So that was our answer. And hopefully I tried to make that clear. And if we didn't, I certainly apologize to the neighbors that were on our call. We did have a neighborhood meeting, and I think two of the women that were at the meeting are on this call tonight. So welcome back, Ms. McNeil and Ms. Carpenter. Be glad to hear from both of you again. They both did express some of their concerns about the increased traffic that would be generated up through Edgeware. And so we certainly appreciate their input during that meeting. They were also concerned about the safety of their neighborhood and if the interconnectivity with Pythabra would, decrease the safety of their neighborhood. So there were some concerns there, along with their concerns about rental properties going up next to their homes. So all appreciable comments that they made, and we very much appreciate their time coming in and talking to us. So we're certainly here for any additional questions, and I'll turn it over to Scott Miller. Scott, if you'd like to fill in on anything, you're more than welcome to.
7 minutes.
Thank you, Paul. No, I really think you covered just about everything. We are here to answer any questions that you may have that might come up. Certainly, as Paul indicated, we are trying to do a very neighborhood-friendly product here, trying to keep within the residential kind of feeling and flavor that is out there currently. So anything we can do to help answer any questions, we're certainly here and make ourselves available. Thank you for the opportunity.
6.5 minutes, just FYI.
Mr. Chairman, unless somebody from the proponents speaks up, I believe that concludes our time for the proponents. And if you're ready, we can move to the up.
Hold on. 1 minute. Myrtle McNeil, Queen Anne Circle.
Miss McNeil, excuse me, Miss McNeil, we're getting ready to come to you now. We're closed. We're leaving the proponents, and we're getting ready to recognize you. Give us 1 second.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely correct. We'll begin the public hearing portion for the opponents of this request. The first person signed up is Myrtle McNeil. It looks like Ms. McNeil, if you want to go ahead and unmute, provide your name and address for the record, and you can begin your remarks. And I believe you also had another resident there with you, and so I will let you both coordinate your 12 minutes.
Okay, this is Myrtle McNeil at 3835 Queen Anne Circle. And Dorothy Carpenter is here with me at, what's your address?
4098 Edgeware Road.
Now, our concern was that there was a proposal for a 30 years storm treatment, the stormwater there. And we were saying that there's so much water here already. Is that going to cause us to have more water problems than we already have? That was one of our concerns. The other concern was,
this is Dorothy. The other concern is the traffic on Edgeware. I'm on the dead end of Edgeware. What I need to understand is they said they're gonna curb the road for them to have exit coming up Edgeware to get into that property. We have a lot of kids that plays in the street down as you come into Edgeware. Is y'all gonna put speed bumps down there to slow the traffic? Because we already have a lot of traffic coming up Edgeware to turn into Queen Anne Circle and come out. You know, it's a lot of elder folks up in here, and we like to have the noise ordinance that keep down. We sleep peaceful. We don't have our drug problems up in here, and we want to keep it that way. That is some of the concerns with the older elder person, people that's living out here. You know, I mean, with the water, like we talked about before, with the water that's flowing out here, we have a lot of water flowing down Edgeware and Queen Anne Circle when it pours down raining. And the drains, we don't know what's going on with the water drains out here, going behind people's houses. The trailer park that's gonna sit up there, that we got a trailer park already there, where they said it's gonna come near that trailer park. Is they gonna be able to have access to come out in this new property to come down in this, down through Edgeware too? Is some of the questions that we won't answer. I mean, we're not against the opposed of having the condos built, but we just don't want our community to open up, and we have a lot of problems. We just got it straightened out here. I've been out here 30 years. We don't got the drugs out of here. We don't got the teenagers settled down. And we just don't want all of this to start back up again. You know, that's our concern too. Is the trailer park gonna have exit? Are they gonna be able to make, we already got them out here doing things now. We formed our own community up here to watch out for each other, to keep everybody under control and everything. Like I said, I know progress is coming, and we know things are moving, and we don't mind. Just reassure us that things is not gonna get bad.
and one other thing is the sidewalk coming
we don't
down,
do that.
coming out of the new development. We are not interested in sidewalks down this way at all, because that will be another concern with people coming in and out.
And think they can lean around our houses. We just don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Little over
you.
8 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that concludes all the speakers for this case.
Okay.
Could I ask a question of the developer in relationship to the comments from the neighbors? Is there currently a stormwater retention pond on this piece of property?
This is Paul Fedition with MLA. No, there is not. And we are not proposing a stormwater pond on this. Of course, we have to meet all the requirements for stormwater on site. And if you look at the plan, we're trying to be very cognizant of the water flowing downstream towards Edgeware. We have got a series of 2 different sand filters in place. They're staggered so that we're catching water in 2 different areas before it releases onto the site. All of the stormwater is tied into, there are 2 large 18-inch pipes, stormwater pipes, that are immediately adjacent to the property down on the Edgeware side. These 2 18-inch pipes pipe directly into a creek that's away from the homes. So all of the stormwater that's tied, that's within this parcel, will be directed to those 2 inlets. And that's after it goes through the stormwater BMPs. So I think that it would be safe to say, and we've been out there, we understand that all of the water currently. Yeah.
Paul, this is Aaron. Can you, I think can you narrate that one more time now that we've got the site plan up, and whoever's got
sure.
that, either Desmond, please help move the mouse there to make sure everybody kind of to go along with Paul's narration so everybody sees what we're talking about here.
Okay. Yeah, the 2 hatched in areas, the grayed in oblong areas, that's a series of 2 different sand filters. So we will catch all of the stormwater off all of the impervious areas. All of the streets are curb and gutter with stormwater inlets, with curb inlets. All that water will go to the series of these 2 sand filters. It'll treat water quality and water quantity on site. So of course we will be releasing no more water than what's currently being released off site. All this water is being released. If you look down to where Edgeware intersects with the newly proposed Edgeware extension, on that lower portion of Edgeware, there's a drop inlet that has 2 18-inch RCP pipes that the city has installed that we will be tying into with all of the stormwater coming off this site. So it'll go underground to the creek downstream, and it will not be flowing through the neighborhood.
And I think the takeaway, this is Scott Miller, I think the takeaway on this is, yes, there's a problem in some of the neighborhoods, in the backyards of some of those neighborhoods. And that is probably coming from two different locations. Number one, from the mobile home park that is out of our control and off our property, but also all of the property that we're talking about right now. Basically, the entire site flows towards their backyards. And so by doing what Paul is suggesting, we're actually going to be improving what we can improve, which is the land that we control, by collecting that water in 2 different locations. And those, basically, without getting into a lot of technical stuff, basically those basins, those sand filters, catch the water and allow it to seep in or infiltrate back into the groundwater, and it's not released back to their backyards. Any water that's in excess of that, like Paul was saying, only the amount that is currently going off site can go off site now, but instead of going to their backyards, it is actually piped to those 2 pipes that he talked about in Edgeware. So I think while we can't control water that's coming to them from off-site and from other locations, we can control, and we think we are controlling in a much better situation, the water that's currently going off that site. We're controlling it much better in the future condition than it is in the existing condition. So I hope that helped a little bit.
Thank you, because I think that should be somewhat reassuring to those residents that this is, I mean, we see a lot of stormwater plans, and this one seems to be in the scale and with the kind of design that should prevent that from this new development, at least. The other thing that I would mention to the residents is, you mentioned the kids on the road and playing on the road. Remember that sidewalks are a safety device, and you may want to come back to the city in the future and talk about sidewalks if you're finding that walking on the road or kids being on the road is presenting a problem, because sidewalks are considerably safer than walking on non-curbed roads that may have cars parked in them and things like that along the way. So just keep that as an option as you're looking into the future, because we've seen other neighborhoods reach out and want to have some kind of safety devices like that.
I had another question related to stormwater, if I may. and Mr. Fogarty had mentioned in his comments that stormwater staff is requiring as a condition of approval management to the 50-year peak and volume. And I just wanted to ask Mr. King if that condition was part of what we would be recommending, because I didn't quite see that on the conditions of approval in the staff report.
I may defer to Desmond on that one. I don't see it in here. Desmond, can you comment
Yeah, I'll
on
go
that?
ahead and respond to that. It doesn't appear in the staff report because that was Joe's comment. If that is something that the board wants to, if that's a condition that the board would like to attach to this development, you can make your motion however you're going to recommend to the city council. And then you could amend the condition to include a requirement that the development control or manage for the 50-year storm event.
Well, I kind of believe that that's important here because I don't know if other people are aware of the stormwater issues of this general area, but there are significant issues. And even though the stormwater is going through these pipes into the creek, these creeks, the network of creeks in this area is very problematic for flooding downstream and in other neighborhoods throughout this general area. So I would concur with Mr. Fogarty. I do think that that would be an important addition here.
And can I just tag on and just ask a question of the developer? So with your sand filters, are you also using a permeable like surface near them to filter into them? So like or a permeable asphalt component or permeable pavers that will help?
I'll try to answer your question. No, basically this is a performance-based kind of requirement by the city, and we have to hold for a certain design storm, and we can do that in a number of ways. Pervious pavement is just one way to do that. What we chose to do was to divide it into two larger areas and create sand filters to accomplish the same thing that pervious pavement would do. So while we haven't included pervious pavement in our design, it's just one of the tools in the toolbox to use. We've just selected different tools to do that. As it relates to the previous question with regards to the 50-year storm, certainly those comments did come up from Joe about his thoughts that maybe that might be an appropriate thing to design for. For those people that aren't technical, basically what we're talking about is increasing the amount of storage or infiltration ability above and beyond what the normal city requirement is for this site. So that's just something our client would have to, I guess, agree to if that's going to be a condition to the site plan and to the rezoning request.
And sorry, this is Mo, and I'm a developer, Scott, so this is where my idea is. Did you guys have a geotech report? Did you guys do a water table analysis to
We have
see
not.
if that was...
No, we have not to this point done a geotechnical analysis of this. You know, you start getting into the whole design of the stormwater system, and it gets extremely expensive to go through all of that on the front end when you don't even know if you've got a project yet. So we have tried to be conservative in the areas that we have to hold back the water, but we have not designed those systems out, and until we get ready to do that, we have not done the geotechnical report yet, but that will be part of the process moving forward.
Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Brenda. I have a bit of a concern when we start adding conditions in terms of the storm, or like control of the 50-year storm, when that's outside the scope of the existing regulations. I don't want us to start trying to rewrite the regulations on a case-by-case basis. the idea of more is always better, it sounds good, but I think we need to tread a little bit lightly on starting to just say, well, we'd like a little more without a basis other than it's got to be better than what we have already. And I don't want to get to where we feel like we are free to just change the existing underlying regulations on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and this is Clarence. I join in those comments, but I feel even more strongly about it. We are not stormwater engineers. I know some of us have tremendous amount of expertise about this, but if we need to change to a 50-year storm, then let's do that legislatively and let's advocate for a change in the ordinance or something like that. But I'm very uncomfortable for us to get into a trend of imposing stuff that we really don't know much about.
I would just say I really appreciate those last two comments. While I know we're the ones asking for something in this particular case, but also, we have tried to follow the rules and recommendations, whether it's buffer yards, tree save area, maximum impervious surface amounts. There are a lot of rules and regulations to try to make sure that whatever we develop is developed in a way that is environmentally and just friendly to the neighborhood. So, we have multiple ways to handle some of these things, and we're trying to use them in a creative way. But I do appreciate those last two comments that that hits home pretty squarely with us too.
I wasn't, just to clarify, I was just using those questions as clarifying, as you can use those to also justify why the 50 year is not usable here. I don't think that it's necessary in this situation, but, and I think you've appropriately used it. I do think that if you should come back from your geotech and that maybe considering a permeable surface might help you with your sand filters, and that might help, but that's it. That's my professional opinion, not so much from doing that on a day-to-day basis.
Sure, and that's a great comment. Like I said, there's multiple ways to go about the end result, and while we're showing a couple options here or an option here, it doesn't have to be the end all be all, and there might be a situation where that permeable pavement or some other kind of device might be very helpful in our case as we move forward. So appreciate those comments.
Mr. Miller, does this creek continue down toward Bethabra and what is it, Muddy Creek down there? Or is it Miller Creek? Do you know?
No, it was one of the staff comments, and as to where these stormwater pipes outletted, we're not privy to which creek that is.
Okay, because I mean, I know that the rest of the planning board is aware that the Bethabra apartments and the church down in that area, if it's running downhill on that, is one of the worst flooded areas, and that the property has been destroyed in value by any rain that occurs. I mean, it just floods over and over and over again. And I hope and trust that the staff has taken that into account in negotiating this 30 years, and that the city council is not going to have to worry about the problems with the stormwater down in those apartments where we see people. I mean, tenants are having to abandon their houses. Owners are having to redo the apartments constantly in that area. That is what I believe is the downflow of this. So I trust that staff is taking that into account, negotiating this development.
Well, if I could just explain a little bit what my concern is. Mr. Fogarty, who is the staff person in charge of stormwater, has recommended this condition. And so I don't understand why we're saying that we should defer to the experts when the expert has already made a recommendation in this case. And I just think that this is a very problematic area, and the city has already put a lot of money into dealing with some of the stormwater issues in this general area, public money. So I would hope that as this goes forward to the city council, that the city council take a close look here and take the advice of our engineers, take the advice of our experts to make sure that we're not creating more problems. And if there is a need that to control to a higher standard, that be done. And I just note that in the Polo Road case that we just considered, that was one of the conditions that was part of that approval, the 50-year storm standard. So I don't think it's necessarily, a bad idea to do that in this case as well.
I think I've heard all the comments, and we could go on for hours on stormwater. I remember former chair used to say we're not the stormwater police, but I do think we always need to be cognizant of what the stormwater is doing, how the water is running. And, I would challenge the city staff and planning board to always bring that to our attention, because we do seem to spend a lot of time discussing this issue. So are there any other comments or questions? If not, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed so that we can move forward with the vote or motion. Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Is there a second by motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Stillman? Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Bo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, that's 8-0.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Clarence. I move that the planning board recommend approval of W 3474.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Grubbs. Any further discussion? Mr. King, would you please call the roll?
George Bryan,
Yes.
Melinda Dunnigan,
Yes.
Jason Grubbs,
Yes.
Clarence Lamb,
Yes.
Chris Leak,
Yes.
Bo McCray,
Yes.
Brenda Smith,
Yes.
Jack Steelman.
Yes.
So that's 8-0. And Mr. Chairman, that brings us, I believe, to the end of the items on your public hearing list there.
All right. So that's it. We're now going to move into the staff report.
That is correct. It will be very brief. I will let you know that Walter Farabee has been confirmed by the county commissioners as an appointment to the planning board. And so he will be joining you at your May work session. So you can look forward to that. Speaking of said May work session, it will be busy. We've got a lot of stuff to bring to you there, including our work program to begin that discussion for next year. And I will let Desmond give a preview of your June public hearing meeting.
All right, before I get to that, I just want to thank Elizabeth again for participating this month, and let the board know that we'll probably be having more people on my team and who work closely with my team participating in the research and analysis for these rezoning petitions moving forward. I'm trying to give more people an opportunity to investigate these things and interact with you all, and be able to answer those difficult questions. So again, thanks to Elizabeth, and thank you to the board for taking it easy on her.
Thank you, Desmond. Thank you all.
For the next month, we actually had 3 cases that were supposed to go to this meeting that were continued. 2 of those will go to June. And then in addition to those 2, we have 8 other applications for you all to consider next month. I don't think any of them are terribly complex, although one of them is our very first special use rezoning for an accessory dwelling. And then we're planning to bring to you a proposed text amendment related to the use storage services retail. And I think you all are going to be briefed on that at your May work session. That's all I have.
Thank you. Before I turn it over for the good of the order, I want to thank again the planning staff for the treat that all of us received. I think Ms. Jolly, Ms. Broom, thank you so much for thinking of us. And this month, if you could send out pizza or a burger, that would be even better. But thank you so much for your kindness. Ms. Smith?
All right, we have our motion to adjourn.
All right. Everyone have a positive evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Thank you.